when we read many of the Mahayana sutras, the Lotus Sutra, for example, what strikes us is the incredible array of visual imagery. And we're quite bemused by it, and often we read through the sutra rather impatiently, trying to get past all this visual stuff and get to the ideas. So we're a bit like a primitive anatomist who, opening up a body, sees all this gunk, all this myofascial stuff, and just flings it all away, because the real business is the heart and the liver and so on, not all this other stuff. And the visual quality is even more striking when we compare it with the Pali sutras, which are just very practical. So somebody comes to the Buddha, asks the Buddha a question, the Buddha inquires about his particular circumstances and attempts to be helpful. And all this later stuff about millions and billions of bodhisattvas all gathered around the Buddha on Vulture Peak just seems bizarre. The origin of this emphasis on the visual in Mahayana seems to start with the Pranjnaparamita sutras. And it's important to note that the Pranjnaparamita sutras, the start of their composition, occurs around the same time as the start of the Abhidharma literature. So you have a situation for the first couple of 100 years or so after the Buddha's death that the sutras are just transmitted orally. And they have the pattern that you would expect of an oral transmission. So there's quite a lot of repetition and formula to enable the sutras to be remembered more easily. And then you have this change where the sutras are written down. And when they're written down, it's possible then to compare them, to try and fit them all together into a coherent system, which is what the Abhidharma literature attempts to do, and it's what Nagarjuna attacks. But alongside that, round about the same time, we have the Pranjnaparamita literature, which kind of stands in opposition to that, and instead of a philosophical structure, we have this mass of visual imagery and repetitive text. It's hard for us to make sense of that, because for us, in our culture's predominance of writing, we associate vision, seeing, with the mind, and we probably associate hearing with intuition. So to make sense of this emphasis on the visual in Mahayana, we need to understand that the assumptions in classical India were exactly opposite. Because of the preservation of the sutras by recitation, so by hearing, hearing was associated with the intellect, and by extension, when we're hearing arguments of the Abhidharma school trying to make all of this into a coherent system, we're doing so, as it were, with our ears. And by contrast, vision, sight, is associated with immediacy, with receptivity, with a kind of wholeness coming all at once without the mediation of the intellect. And if we can understand that, then we can understand, I think, what is going on with this emphasis on the visual in the Mahayana sutras. What we need to be careful is not to think of this as making fantastical claims about the nature of reality corresponding with these extraordinary visions, but rather it's a description of the ways in which different beings can see in that intuitive and complete and arrived sense.